I used to have a passion for golf. My father introduced me to the game, and I cherished the time we spent playing together. It served as a meaningful bond between us. Living in Eastern Virginia allowed for ample golfing opportunities, typically spanning about 9 months of the year, sometimes more. While I wasn't consumed by it, I genuinely enjoyed playing. My skill level varied depending on how much I practiced, but I typically considered myself an average player. My name is Rob, and during my high school years, I tended to be more introverted. I experienced a late growth spurt, going from 5 feet 3 inches in 9th grade to 6 foot by 11th grade. In terms of appearance, I'd say I'm average, but those who know me often remark on my good sense of humor and laid-back personality. I also reached certain milestones later than others, including losing my virginity, which happened the summer before college. It wasn't a particularly romantic experience, but at least it provided some level of sexual familiarity before heading off to university. College proved to be a fantastic period in my life. Attending a large university in the state, I relished the experience. I immersed myself in football games and socializing, dating various people but never finding that special connection. While I did have a girlfriend for nearly a year, the relationship eventually ended when she found someone else. Though it stung, I accepted it and moved forward. After college, I transitioned into a banking career, embracing the next chapter of my life. Despite friends attempting to set me up with potential partners, I didn't encounter anyone who truly captured my heart. However, a reunion with old friends at a wedding changed everything. Among them was Sandra, a beautiful, quiet woman who instantly intrigued me. We began dating, and I soon found myself falling deeply in love with her. Sandra possessed a kindness and sweetness that resonated with me, and I began to believe we were meant for each other. Our ability to engage in deep conversations for hours only reinforced this feeling. Sandra revealed that while she had dated before, I was her first true love. She also shared that, despite previous experiences, she remained a virgin. As our relationship progressed, I expressed my desire for a sexual connection, but she insisted on waiting until marriage. After 9 months together, I proposed, and she joyfully accepted, spreading the news to friends and family. I was elated beyond words. As our wedding day approached, I noticed Sandra becoming more affectionate, touching me tenderly. While I respected her desire to wait for intercourse until after marriage, I suggested exploring other intimate activities together. I made it clear I wouldn't push for vaginal or anal sex, but we found other ways to pleasure each other, providing some relief. Sandra became adept at giving sensual blowjobs, taking her time to tease and please me, although she didn't swallow. I, in turn, delighted in giving her oral pleasure, relishing the experience of bringing her to ecstasy. Despite our physical connection, the anticipation of our wedding day intensified, and I eagerly awaited the culmination of our vows. Finally, the day arrived, and we exchanged vows, embarking on our journey together. Despite modest incomes from our respective jobs, Sandra as a teacher and myself in banking, we found happiness in each other. Our lovemaking was frequent, exploring various aspects of intimacy except anal sex. While Sandra still didn't swallow, she gave her all in other ways, deepening our bond. After 4 years of marriage, we decided to start a family, planning for parenthood by discontinuing birth control at the end of the school year. In addition to our marital bliss, I maintained my passion for golf, regularly playing with a group of friends every Saturday and sometimes during the week. Attending the annual PGA Tour event in our area was a tradition I cherished, occasionally volunteering for the event through our bank's sponsorship. Observing the pros' remarkable talent was always awe-inspiring, although there was a strict rule against interacting with them as volunteers. While most were courteous, some preferred to keep their distance, teaching us to respect their space. This year, I looked forward to attending the event on Saturday, inviting Sandra to join me for the outing despite her lack of interest in golf. After some persuasion, she agreed, and we set out to enjoy the beautiful day together. We began to follow some of the players I admired on the course. While my wife wasn't particularly enthusiastic, she graciously joined me, showing her support. During one part of the round, we were following a renowned golfer who wasn't in contention to win but still provided entertainment. He was navigating his way through the course, simply aiming to complete the round and tally his score. As spectators behind the ropes, a shot from the golfer veered off course and bounced off my leg, landing in the rough. It likely saved him a stroke, as the ball was perilously close to the out-of-bounds marker, which would have incurred a penalty. As he and his caddy approached to retrieve the ball, we respectfully made way for them, standing near them with Sandra by my side. Some fans nearby remarked that it was my inadvertent involvement that kept the ball in play, to which the golfer chuckled and exchanged a quiet word with his caddy. Remaining curious but silent, I watched as he prepared for his next shot. After successfully hitting the ball, he turned to my wife and expressed his gratitude, causing her to blush. Puzzled, I asked her about the exchange, but she simply shrugged it off. We followed the group to the green, observing as he made his par and prepared to move on. However, before departing, he instructed his caddy to engage Sandra in conversation, which piqued my interest. As we lingered at the green, the caddy continued chatting with Sandra, while the golfer and I exchanged glances. When the caddy finally caught up with his player, I inquired about their discussion. Sandra informed me that they had extended an invitation for us to join them for dinner after the round, which I found thoughtful. Assuming it was a gesture of appreciation for my role in keeping the ball in play, I followed them until the conclusion of the round. Throughout, I couldn't help but notice the golfer and his caddy exchanging glances and laughter with Sandra, who, with her radiant smile, remained unfazed. As we lingered at the 18th hole, observing a few more golfers finish their rounds, the caddy approached us with a dilemma. He explained that there was only space available for one additional person at dinner and asked Sandra if she would like to join them. I hesitated, but before I could respond, the caddy urged me to allow Sandra to decide for herself, emphasizing the anticipated enjoyment of the dinner. I was taken aback when Sandra turned to me and expressed her desire to join the golfer for dinner, citing hunger and fatigue, and appreciating his thoughtfulness. Bewildered, I questioned, "What about me?" Her response, delivered with sweetness, assured me it wouldn't take long, and she'd return shortly. She proposed that I continue watching golf while she enjoyed dinner, a compromise to fulfill both our desires. The caddy interjected, urging me to be a good sport and allow my wife this opportunity. Feeling a mix of shock and indignation, I protested, deeming the situation absurd. However, Sandra's kiss and reassurance left me speechless. Reluctantly, I watched as the caddy lifted the rope for her, guiding her away with promises of calling later. It dawned on me that we had left our cell phones in the car due to tournament regulations. Attempting to call out after her proved futile, as the caddy insisted she'd contact me using their phone once she finished dinner. Crushed and humiliated, I stood alone, sensing the judgmental gazes of onlookers. Overhearing a spectator's condemnation of the golfer's actions, I felt a surge of anger. Walking away from the crowd, I struggled to regain composure, deciding to wander aimlessly to pass the time. Retrieving my cell phone from the car, I realized the potential communication barrier, as Sandra might not recall my number without her phone. Doubts plagued me, wondering if she even cared about my presence after leaving so eagerly. As the sun dipped lower, the passing hours weighed heavily on me. By 7:30, I grappled with the harsh reality of being sidelined on what seemed destined to be the worst day of my life. The thought of Sandra experiencing a glamorous lifestyle without me intensified my anguish. Feeling increasingly isolated, I contemplated seeking information at the clubhouse, only to be thwarted by guest restrictions. By 8 o'clock, overwhelmed by frustration and anxiety, I made the decision to leave, relying on the hope that Sandra would contact our home phone, her usual point of reach. Knowing Sandra's limited alcohol intake contrasted with the reputed indulgence of professional golfers, I fretted over her vulnerability in such an environment. Panic consumed me as I faced the uncertainty of the situation, grappling with feelings of abandonment and betrayal. I drove home in a state of turmoil. The journey stretched to 45 minutes due to the mass exodus from the golf course. Keeping my phone close, I hoped for any sign from my wife. Anxiety gripped me as I considered every possible scenario. Arriving at our apartment by 9 o'clock, I eagerly checked for messages, only to find a request from Sandra's mom for dinner the following night. As I paced, I called the tournament headquarters urgently, explaining Sandra's situation with the golfer. They promised to pass on the message, but after an hour of waiting, I heard nothing. Frustration and anger gnawed at me, directed at both Sandra and the golfer. Sandra had never given me cause for doubt, yet now I feared the worst. Was she in danger or simply indulging in the allure of wealth and fame? Confounded by her disrespect, I struggled to comprehend her actions. Just as I was drifting off, the home phone rang. It was the golfer. He informed me that Sandra had consumed too much alcohol and needed to stay until she sobered up. Enraged, I insisted on collecting her, but he brushed off my concern, assuring me she was sleeping and he would arrange transportation for her later. Demanding to speak with her, I was met with laughter and promises of an attempt. When Sandra finally came to the phone, she dismissed my worries, insisting she was fine and asking me to go to bed. Stunned by her response, I offered to retrieve her immediately, but she rebuffed me, claiming she'd be home later. Feeling helpless, I realized my attempts to redial were futile. Doubts consumed me as I lay on the bed, contemplating my next move. Searching for information on the golfer, I discovered he was married with children and a glamorous wife. Anger surged within me. Why did he have to involve himself with my wife? Desperate for action, I considered reaching out to his family, although I knew it was a long shot. Determined not to be a doormat, I resolved to make Sandra regret her actions. With a heavy heart, I decided to leave, unable to bear the betrayal any longer. By midnight, I was ready to go. Feeling a whirlwind of emotions, I hastily packed a few essentials for a hotel stay, torn between concern for Sandra's safety and a desire for retribution. Uncertainty gnawed at me. I needed to uncover the truth about her actions. Sandra had always been truthful with me, and I prided myself on being able to discern when she wasn't completely honest. If she had been intimate with the golfer, our marriage would be shattered. Yet, if he had taken advantage of her, there might still be a glimmer of hope. However, her sober demeanor during our phone call and her scolding of me in front of him added another layer of humiliation. The realization dawned that she didn't seem to care whether I was present or not. At midnight, I left Sandra's cell phone behind and checked into a nearby motel, despite knowing sleep would elude me. The absurdity of the situation didn't escape me as I lay on the bed, unable to rest. I must have dozed off briefly, as I woke to sunlight streaming through the window at 8:30. Checking my phone, I discovered missed calls from Sandra at various intervals throughout the night, ranging from apologetic to irate. I couldn't help but scoff at her sudden concern, contrasting sharply with her earlier actions. Deciding to grab breakfast, I mulled over my next steps. Though I still cared for Sandra's safety, I couldn't deny the anger and hurt I felt. A call from Sandra's mom went unanswered, a pang of guilt hitting me as I remembered the love and kindness they had always shown me. With the uncertainty looming, I contemplated attending their dinner later that evening. After checking out of the motel, I opted to spend some time in the park, hoping the solitude would offer clarity. Despite numerous missed calls, I resisted answering, knowing Sandra might be anxious about my abrupt departure. The question lingered, had she been intimate with the golfer, or was it merely dinner and drinks? Regardless, she had chosen him over me emotionally, a betrayal that cut deep. The events of the past 24 hours shattered my perception of our relationship, leaving me grappling with feelings of disbelief and heartache. I wandered for hours, my phone incessantly ringing. Among the calls were from Sandra's friend and my sister, as well as numerous attempts from Sandra herself. Choosing to return my sister's call, I sought comfort in her guidance. Sally, always protective, immediately expressed concern about Sandra's frantic state, prompting me to delve into the events of the previous night. As I recounted the tumultuous night, filled with uncertainty and hurt, Sally was incredulous. She adamantly defended Sandra's fidelity, insisting she would never betray me. Skeptical, I urged Sally to probe deeper, demanding clarity on Sandra's actions during the hours of my absence. An hour later, Sally called back, reporting Sandra's denial of any infidelity. Though I remained skeptical of Sandra's claims, Sally emphasized the importance of communication. Despite her reassurance, I needed time to contemplate our future together, torn between forgiveness and severance. Seeking solace in a quick lunch, I finally relented and returned Sandra's call. Sandra's tearful apology tugged at my heartstrings, yet doubts lingered. Promising to return home soon, I declined her invitation to her parents' house, insisting she could go alone if she wished. Her declaration of devotion stirred conflicting emotions within me, prompting a wry chuckle as I ended the call. Returning home later that afternoon, I was met by Sandra and her friend Angela, whose abrupt departure left me puzzled. Sandra approached, but I withheld any gesture of affection, prompting her tears. As she sobbed, I remained composed, offering her a seat and a glass of water. Facing each other, I resolved to uncover the truth, bracing myself for the difficult conversation ahead. With love and uncertainty warring within me, I implored Sandra to reveal every detail of her time with the golfer, knowing that our future hinged on her honesty. She began by recounting their dinner at the clubhouse, emphasizing the crowded atmosphere and the pros who came over to greet them. Pressing for details, I questioned the intimacy of their seating arrangement, causing her to blush as she admitted another person could have joined them. Despite my rising anger, I urged her to continue. According to Sandra, they engaged in captivating conversation over a couple of hours, with him regaling her with stories of his global adventures as a pro golfer. My frustration grew as she mentioned having a few glasses of wine, escalating when she revealed his invitation to his suite. Struggling to maintain composure, I learned that he had contacted me, claiming Sandra was feeling lightheaded and needed rest. Anguish pierced my heart as Sandra confessed she had considered his offer but felt conflicted, especially after our conversation. The memory of her dismissal of my concerns fueled my anger, culminating in a violent outburst as I hurled a lamp against the wall. Regret washed over me as Sandra fled in tears. Recognizing my mistake, I gave her space before summoning her to continue the discussion. Her tear-stained face and trembling voice revealed her remorse, echoing my own turmoil. In a trembling voice, she confessed, "After I hung up, I felt so guilty for what I said to you that I started crying, and the pro came over and comforted me." She noticed my growing anger and hastened to assure me that was all that happened. Recounting their conversation, she detailed his reminiscences of his family and childhood, punctuated by a brief embrace and a kiss on the cheek, which she rebuffed. Uncomfortable with his advances, she emphasized her loyalty to me, despite his insinuations. Expressing her love and remorse, she implored me to believe her sincerity. As she recounted her return home, her gaze pleaded for understanding. When I pressed for the time of her return, she confessed to arriving at 3:30, prompting me to confront her with a hypothetical scenario, illustrating the depth of my hurt. Her tears flowed anew as I struggled to comprehend her actions. Determined to clear my head, I retreated for another walk, seeking solace in solitude. Returning, I confronted her with the pain of her abandonment at the golf course, accusing her of callousness. Rejecting her explanations, I resolved to forego our plans with her parents, opting instead for a simple pizza dinner. Sandra's admission of confiding in her mother elicited further regret, amplifying her distress. Amidst her tears, I departed to fetch the pizza, grappling with the turmoil of our shattered trust. Her story left me reeling, torn between disbelief and a desperate desire for the truth. Seeking validation, I reached out to my sister and Angela, hoping their perspectives would shed light on Sandra's account. Both reiterated Sandra's narrative, reassuring me of its consistency. Returning home with pizza in hand, I probed Sandra further, seeking clarity amidst the lingering doubts. Her blushes and hesitant responses only fueled my uncertainty. "Did you feel any attraction towards him?" I pressed, watching her closely. "It was intriguing, but not in a sexual way," she admitted, her cheeks flushing. Attempting to gauge his intentions, I asked, "Could you sense his desire for you?" Sandra insisted on his respect for her boundaries, despite any unspoken intentions. Reassured by her answers, I questioned her about the goodnight kiss, echoing Angela's description. "It was brief, just a peck on the lips," Sandra affirmed, her apology tinged with regret. As we shared a solemn meal, the ringing phone remained unanswered, a silent testament to the family's concern. Speaking to my mother, I found solace in her unwavering support, reaffirming our belief in our relationship's strength. Both Sandra and I were drained from the restless night prior. While she focused on preparing lesson plans, I contemplated taking a leave day for Monday. Working in separate rooms, the tension hung thick between us as the evening approached. Uncertain of our sleeping arrangements, I hesitated, considering the emotional distance. As I pondered sleeping separately, Sandra implored me to stay beside her, craving the comfort of my presence despite our strife. Wrestling with my desire for rest and the need for proximity, I relented, agreeing to share the bed. Yet, I made it clear that if she had indeed betrayed my trust, this arrangement would become permanent. With a mix of resolve and desperation, Sandra suggested I contact the golfer to verify her innocence, a proposal that struck me with both skepticism and a glimmer of hope. We retired to bed, the weight of uncertainty heavy upon us. Morning brought the aroma of coffee and breakfast, a rare indulgence amidst our tumultuous emotions. Over the meal, Sandra expressed her remorse and unwavering devotion, pleading for forgiveness with sincerity in her eyes. Touched by her words, I acknowledged her plea, albeit with a cautious heart. Reassured yet wary, I held her close, the warmth of her embrace offering a semblance of solace amidst the uncertainty. With a tentative embrace, we embarked on the arduous journey of rebuilding trust, fueled by love and the shared desire to mend our fractured bond. Sandra and I opted to maintain our living arrangement, each occupying separate rooms for the time being. In a bold move, I dialed the golfer's cell phone and was surprised when he answered. Confirming Sandra's account, he assured me that nothing untoward had occurred, offering a modicum of solace in the midst of our turmoil. Seeking professional guidance, we embarked on counseling sessions with Dr. Jean Thomas. While initially focused on my struggle with forgiveness rather than Sandra's actions, tension simmered until I voiced my frustrations. Confronting Dr. Thomas about perceived gender biases, I aired my grievances, prompting Sandra's tears and the counselor's apology. Dr. Thomas clarified her impartial stance, emphasizing her role in facilitating reconciliation rather than taking sides. Sandra, acknowledging her wrongdoing, expressed remorse and a profound sadness for causing me pain. Her admission tempered my anger, offering a glimmer of hope amid the tumult. Yet, as the session concluded, I grappled with the daunting prospect of overcoming my hurt. Reflecting on Sandra's confession, I inquired if the golfer had complimented her appearance. Blushing, she admitted to his flattery, revealing a vulnerability I hadn't fully recognized. Expressing my own affirmations, I lamented the apparent disparity in her response to external validation versus mine. She acknowledged, "Rob, I know your love for me is genuine, but sometimes hearing it from others makes it more tangible. It's always validating to receive compliments on my appearance from others." Returning to our regular work routines, our relationship gradually began to mend. As Sandra delved into the new school year and our schedules filled up, the pain of the past slowly subsided, though not entirely. While we continued to express our love physically, we decided to postpone having children until we felt we had overcome our personal struggles she readily admitted were largely her fault. One Friday evening, Sandra's parents extended an invitation for a family cookout. Joined by my sister, her family, and our parents, Sandra took a courageous step, addressing everyone to confess her betrayal and beg for forgiveness. Her heartfelt admission moved us all to tears, and as she spoke, I found myself embracing her, feeling a sense of closure. That night, making love felt like a true reconciliation, marking a turning point in our journey to heal from Sandra's indiscretion. In an attempt to move forward, I broached the subject of having a one-time dinner and evening with another woman, provided sex wasn't involved. Seeing her eyes well up with tears, I reassured her that it was just a thought, and perhaps I'd never act on it. Forgiveness had been granted, but the scars of betrayal lingered, a reminder of the depth of pain inflicted by someone I loved. Epilogue. 5 years later, my golf outings have dwindled as family time takes precedence, now that we have a daughter and a son. Our life has regained its former joy, and Sandra's willingness to explore new aspects of intimacy has added a new dimension to our relationship. Despite the turmoil and anger we once faced, we've emerged stronger, blessed with 2 beautiful children. And as for the pro golfer, I recently stumbled upon an article revealing his 3rd marriage. I couldn't help but wonder how many more marriages he'd shattered, thankfully, not ours. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel not to miss new videos.